Sup nerds, I'm CuppaJoey and today we're going to be having a look at r/maliciouscompliance, which is described as people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of a request. So think about the last time somebody told you to do something that you knew was going to go wrong but they wouldn't hear any of it. If you went ahead and did that anyway, knowing full well it would go wrong, that's malicious compliance. Let's have a peek. You're not to get involved in your mum's Facebook stuff. My dad's words years ago when I started a discussion with my mum over some dumb racist crap she said on Facebook. Facebook brings out the worst in my mother, who in real life used to be a lovely woman, but over the years got lost in her echo chamber of stupidity. I tried getting her out, but I'm not to get involved in my mum's Facebook stuff. Today there was an illegal protest in my city. A protest organised on Facebook by the lowest of the low of our society. We have a group of about 100 delusionals in my country who are actually willing to get from behind their keyboards and disrupt public transport in my city any opportunity they can get in the name of the people. My parents, not a part of the 100 but seem to be well on their way, went to today's protest. The protest was illegal, they were told to separate and leave, they didn't, they got arrested. Ha ha. They didn't have any form of identification on them, so they were not allowed to leave. My dad called for the first time this afternoon, asking me to go to their place, pick up the IDs, and then the police station. I asked if this was about the Facebook event, he said yes. I said I better not get involved then, hung up, and ignored his next 17 calls. My aunt apparently went to pick them up later tonight, and everyone pissed at me saying I'm a traitor except for Grandma, who called to say she misses me and I haven't been able to get rid of the grin off my face. This is beautiful. This is the most beautiful response you can give to people in this situation. So, like Opie said, their mother used to be a lovely person, as they say, before they got involved in Facebook and everything. And that's the problem, is that there is this huge misinformation, fake news going around, especially on Facebook, where it's so easy to just blame usually vulnerable people in order to make life a little bit more comfortable for yourself. Because if you can say, oh, it's their fault, leave it as is, and that's it. From what they can say about there being an illegal protest, I'm assuming that this is to do with the lockdown. The OP even went on in the comments to say that their mum never used to be this way, that they're fully vaccinated and now the mother is dedicated anti-vax. So yeah, I'm assuming that in terms of politics and everything that the mother's on the wrong side of it. And you know, from what I can tell, you know, when you call someone out, like when somebody says something racist on Facebook, especially when it's someone as close to you as your mother, when you're talking to them about it, it is to help them. It is to say, look, you got the wrong end of the stick here, you really need to understand the harm you're doing and all of that. But if they're told don't get involved in Facebook stuff, then they need to they need to deal with all of that. And I love the grandma. I love that the grandma just is like, I miss you. Everyone's saying they're a traitor. That's ridiculous. I mean, you can't be a traitor just for not letting your mother, like, sink into delusions. You know, if anything, it's more harmful to let her keep thinking that way. I mean, Opie tried, they weren't having it, so you know what? They have to deal with the fact that they've told Opie not to get involved, and I love that they did this. Hopefully the little stay in the cell might have shaken things up enough that they might reconsider doing this crap another time. Karen wants me to weigh her candy at the movie theatre. English is not my native language, so apologies in advance. This also happened a couple of months ago. Having worked during college at the local movie theatre, I came across all kinds of Karens. In this particular case, Karen went to the movies with her 2 kids around the ages of 4 and 5. As you guys know, movie theatres have high prices for snacks and drinks. It was Sunday morning, and usually this is a busy time with lots of small children and kids' movies. It's obvious that I'm dealing with a total Karen straight from the start, keeping on her sunglasses, chewing gum, and being on her phone the entire time she's waiting in line. When it's her turn, I think to myself, OP, your shift just started. Just be nice and maybe this will all go over smoothly. It didn't. Karen is annoyed by the prices of the tickets. You can buy tickets and your snacks at the same register, and is not happy with the assortment of healthy snacks. I'm still there, trying to keep my best smile like I'm the effing Joker in a low-budget Batman movie, but I'm getting through her order. Now for the little children. As they're acting like dogs running around the place, I will name them like dogs. So child 1 is Ollie, child 2 is Rex. I know a few people called Ollie, none called Rex, but moving on. Note, where I'm from we have a display where you can scoop your own candy in a bag for a fixed price per 100 grams. Being a movie theatre, this is crazy expensive and the full bag can cost around €16. Ollie, Mummy, can we scoop some candy? Karen, how much for the candy? Me. It's €1.50 per 100 gram. Yes, Ollie, hurry up with the candy. Rex. Mum, I want some candy too. Karen. Ollie, help your brother get his candy. At this point, she already spent way too much time in line. Normally, you scoop the candy before you make your purchase to prevent that the transaction takes an extremely long time and we can help other customers. Not for Miss Karen, though. She just goes back to texting on her phone. I'm baffled, annoyed, and just want to go help other customers because the movie has started in 15 minutes and the lines for the registers are not moving at all. So me, the good Samaritan I am, try to eyeball the bag of candy Ollie has so that I can get a rough estimate as to how much the candy will cost. To my enjoyment, I see the kid with an enormous bag of candy almost the size of his head, so I estimate that will be around $15. Rex, his bag isn't that full, but he is still scooping, and I think to myself, realistically the price will be higher, but I just want this to be over and I don't want to overprice them. Me. The total will be €44. Karen. What? Why is it so expensive? Me. Miss, the candy weighs a lot and the price... Karen. But you didn't even weigh it. You're just trying to rip me off. Weigh it and give me the correct price, she says as she grabs the bags from Ollie and Rex. Well, she was correct. I didn't weigh it. But I wasn't trying to rip her off. Heck, I was giving her a huge discount. So I smiled at her and grabbed the bags of candy and put them on the scale. I can see the price and so can the customer. Me. Sure, miss. As you can see, the price of the candy costs €24, so your total will be €53. So of course Karen gets angry and wants me to call the manager because I am still ripping her off. The manager comes along, weighs the candy and confirms that the correct price is €53. Because you have to pay the candy when you grab it because of hygiene rules, there is a big effing sign. Karen eventually buys everything and walks away angry with her kids. Luckily for me, the manager was a nice dude, so I didn't get into trouble for guessing the weight, and at the end of the shift, I was glad I could ruin a movie experience for a Karen. TLDR, I bought the price, Karen gets upset and wants me to weigh it, and the correct price is much more expensive. This gave me real vibes of r/a-hole tax, you know, the whole thing of, well, it was going to be this price, but as you're an a-hole, I am going to charge you this much. I love it when this happens. This is like beautiful karma. This is justice done right. Because this is the kind of karma that I like. I like the petty stuff. I like it when petty people get, you know, negative petty consequences. All it is that she paid what like about €10 more. But yeah, it reminds me of this other post I saw. I was tempted to read it out, but it went way too much into like financial intricacies of everything, so I decided not to read it in the end. But essentially what happened was somebody was going to get a PPI claim, so they reduced some money. They weren't happy that they didn't get enough as much as they expected. And when they demanded that this worker like double check their case, they found out that they had filed for bankruptcy and therefore was no longer entitled to any of it, which wouldn't have come to light had they not been nagging the worker to review their case. So this is like a small scale version of that. And the whole call the manager, like what? What is she expecting? Like, is she expecting the manager to come over and be like, you know what, I bet that most of it is that they think, oh, if I complain to the manager, then the manager's just gonna want to keep me happy, as opposed to, well, you know, you bought this much candy and this is how much it costs, so, you know, pay up. And of course the hygiene rules, yeah, those are important, especially like currently. I think that this was written a little bit before, if I have a look at the date. Oh no, it was only a couple of weeks ago. Okay, so this happened a couple of months ago. I am getting so all over the place while I'm looking at this, but yeah, this was just before the lockdown. But even so, like, well, you know, like the European lockdown, but even so, it's really important that, you know, hygiene is respected regardless of whether or not there's a virus going around. Again, this was a petty person who, and yeah, like the worker was trying to do her a nice thing. I mean, who buys candy from the cinema and doesn't expect to, like, you know, have to remortgage their house for it? And like, as if it's the worker's choice, like, you're just overcharging me because you want to. They're not gonna see like a single cent of that money, like it's just gonna go on the system. But yeah, again, I know I said this a few times during my commentary, but I love the petty comeback. You know, I mean, she brought it on herself, so hey, what they expecting? Sorry, we can't be bothered to learn your name. A few things I need to say first of all. 1, this is from when I was in high school, age 15. 2, all names have been changed. 3, we have been dealing with the teacher in question since we were 12, but usually only one day at a time. So in high school, I was in classes with lots of non-English students. Nearly half of the class were Indian, Polish, or from African countries. Most have been born in England, but names with traditional names and spellings, but a few were born in other countries and moved to England before they turned 10. On to the story. At one point, our English teacher went off sick due to a problem with her throat that caused her to lose her voice. No problem, she was well planned, so the school arranged a long-term substitute who was given all the lesson plans, slideshows, worksheets, and homework. We'll call this substitute teacher Mrs. Smith. As I've already mentioned, we have many foreign students in this class. Common examples of names are Patricia, being spelled Patrigia, Casper spelled Kacper, a student named Star, and a South African who had moved over here when he was 6 with a traditional name. With the exception of the South African student, all these students had their names pronounced exactly the same as the English version. A few got caught on Casper, they thought it was Cacper, but most of the time we just needed to correct pronunciation. Then Mrs. Smith started. We knew she would be with us at least a month, since our old teacher told us that was how long she had to be on a complete voice rest. No problem, we can live with that. Mrs. Smith couldn't pronounce any name not English. We didn't blame her, there were some unusual names in there. Every time she said a name wrong, the student would correct her. That was day 1. By the end of week 1, it became obvious that she was purposefully saying names wrong. Instead of Patricia being pronounced as Patricia, she would come up with something like Patrigier. Totally wrong, corrected many times, corrections ignored. As we were a close class who mostly got on, we were all a little offended by this. Normally these students would be happy with nicknames being used, but with Mrs. Smith it was different. At the end of the day, one of the students asked why she wasn't trying to get their names right. Her reply, "Sorry, I can't be bothered to learn your names, they're just too weird. Maybe you should ask your mum to give you a normal name." Safe to say we were pissed off. This was the worst thing to say to a diverse group of 15-year-olds. The next Monday, one of the students decided to start malicious compliance. When she called out the register, butchering his name, he refused to answer. She asked why he wasn't answering, and he simply said, "You never called my name." Same thing through the whole lesson. Anytime she called on him, he would ignore her. She tried everything, shouting, standing in front of his desks, trying to give him detention, but every time he ignored her. And when she gave him a detention slip, he simply looked at it and said, "This can't be for me, that's not my name." She had misspelt his first and last name to such a degree you couldn't even tell it was meant to be his name. Slowly, the rest of the class joined in. Unless she said our name exactly right, we wouldn't answer. Eventually, someone had a brilliant idea. Start calling her something different. So we started calling her Mrs. Smythe. Not something majorly different, but it annoyed her. By the end of week 2, she demanded we all stay after class. It was the last lesson of the day, so nobody was happy, but we knew our rights as students. She could only hold us 15 minutes. Anything longer, she had to give prior warning and get confirmation from our parents that we could be held back that long. So she starts raving about how she's never taught such an ungrateful, disobedient, stupid class. Mind you, we were in the highest set for English, so we understood the language perfectly. She's ranting and raving, calling each student out in turn. Then the door opens, and the head teacher asks why everyone was still there. We'd been held there 20 minutes, and one of the parents waiting had come in and asked what was wrong. She goes off about how awful our class are, how we're disrespecting her, and even calls out one of the students by calling them the wrong name, and that student happens to be one of the ones who the parent was picking up. When the head teacher turns to us and asks what we've done, the instigator explains, "We're calling her Mrs. Smythe until she can pronounce our names properly." When asked why, this kid gets the best smile on his face and goes, "She can't be bothered with our names, so we can't be bothered with hers." We had a new substitute teacher by Monday, and when our normal teacher came back, she gave us all sweets for standing up for ourselves. Mrs. Smith, she's banned from teaching now. TLDR, substitute teacher refused to learn how to pronounce unusual names, gets herself banned from teaching. Okay, get strapped in. I have so much to say about this one. This was a very satisfying read. I'm glad that the teacher got her comeuppance at the end. Okay, so I am white British, and when I was a kid, I grew up in an area of the city that was mostly populated by first and second generation immigrants from India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. And I have to say, I absolutely loved it. Like, do you know what religious education is like when you've got a class full of students from so many different cultures? It basically means that you, as a kid, you get to sit down and watch cartoons of all of these different little stories for different religions while trying all of these different traditional foods. It was great. I mean, I was younger than high school age, but even so, kids don't necessarily need to be able to speak the same language to play with each other. I loved it, and I think that, multiculturalism is amazing. Anyway, that to one side for 1 second. This teacher, oh my goodness, that is okay. So it's racist. I might as well call it out as it is. It is racist and it is xenophobic. So the first thing I'm going to say before I delve into how racist this person is that it really isn't difficult to learn names from other languages, or indeed other cultures. Like, if you all remember the remake of Annie that came out recently, the actor's name for Annie was Quvenzhané Wallis. Now, I had never heard the name Quvenzhané until I had come across this actor. However, once you've heard a name, once it's sounded out, you can put the sounds together. All it took was me hearing her go, Quvenzhané. That's not me tooting my own horn, that is me saying this is very simple stuff. I don't think that there's any excuse for not learning someone's name. I think that the absolute worst that you can do if you really struggle with pronunciation, like the absolute worst is that you're going to say their name with an accent that's not typical. Like, even people who speak English as a first language have thought that I was called Jerry. But once it's corrected, you then know. Nobody's expecting anybody to instantly know how to pronounce a name that they've never seen before, because it's the novelty of it that's the issue, not the fact that they are foreign. So, for once, I do not believe for 1 second that she was just struggling to learn the name, because, they said that they let it go for quite a while before they actually called her out on it. But I did feel that there was some kind of malicious nature behind it. Like, for example, the name Patricia that was spelt in, I believe, a Polish way. That is, there's an English version of that. Once they say, oh no, it's the same as Patricia, it's just this is how we spell it because this is how our language works, then So she can't even make up the excuse that she didn't know how to pronounce it when some of the names are exactly the same as English but are spelt differently. And again, when there was that one student that she kept butchering his name and then gave him a detention slip where it was written down, his name would be on the register. So I do not believe for 1 second that this was just a xenophobic teacher that was struggling with foreign names and not putting the effort in. I think it goes one step beyond that. I mean, that isn't acceptable in any situation anyway, but she is deliberately attacking them. It was a deliberate act to try and make these people feel uncomfortable, to try and make people feel like there is something wrong with them for not having a traditionally English name. And this is overt racism. And the fact that she even said, oh, they were racist against her just because she was deliberately attacking them for their names. Like the fact that she even said, why can't your mum give you a normal name, as if English names are inherently normal. Oh, she just sounds like just such an awful person. She was in a position where she should be looking after children, but, apparently has a problem with ones that aren't white British, Just what an outright awful person. I'm not surprised she was fired. I'm surprised that they put up with it for that long, but I really just want to freaking stand up and clap to that first student that decided he wasn't going to put up with her crap anymore. The first student that ignored her. The first student that said, no, this isn't my name, you can't be talking to me. He is amazing. He would have given the confidence to the others to stand up. And that is such a huge power dynamic as well. When you've got the teacher and the school and that authority figure down against you and you're one person, that's really difficult. But the fact that they banded together and stood up for what was right, I really love that. Well, that's it for r/malicious compliance. Please let me know in the comments which of these stories was your favourite, and similarly, if you have any stories of your own malicious compliance that you'd like me to read out, feel free to drop me an email, which can be found on the channel. And as I always say, if you would like to hear more from this subreddit or from any other subreddits that I may or may not have covered yet, then please let me know in the comments, and until the next video, I will see you next time.